if you're joining us for today's deep dive, you might want to buckle up.
Yeah.
We are looking at a universe known as the Shield of God, and I have to admit, when we first pulled this material together for you, I thought we were just looking at a standard, albeit wild, cyberpunk thriller.
Oh, for sure. It definitely masquerades as one initially.
It really does.
Yeah.
But then, I started tracing the geographical map of this world. Usually when you unfurl an ancient eschatological map, meaning a story dealing with end-of-the-world theology, you're tracing your finger over the Middle East, right?
Right, you're looking at Jerusalem or maybe the deserts of Egypt.
Exactly. Or the ruins of Rome. But this mythology forces you to drag your finger north, like way north, past Europe, past the Baltic Sea, all the way up into the freezing, snow-covered tundras of Lapland in Finland.
Which is just a massive geographical and tonal shift. And it completely alters the stakes of the story we're exploring with you today. You're taking the epicenter of ancient sacred mythology and dropping it squarely into the Arctic Circle.
Yeah, it's a huge pivot. And before we really get into the weeds, we should probably throw out a quick disclaimer. Because this narrative weaves high-tech sci-fi with some very intense, deeply ingrained political and religious imagery, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It recasts a lot of real-world institutions and geopolitical regions as hubs of this cosmic conflict. So as analysts, we're just impartially reporting on this dense mythology. We aren't endorsing or, taking sides on any of the viewpoints presented.
Right. We're just mapping the blueprints of this bizarre, brilliant psychological puzzle. We want to see how it functions as this sprawling epic about spiritual warfare.
Exactly. So let's look at those blueprints, starting with the Arctic relocation. Because the foundational premise here is that there is a secret, ancient bloodline of King David.
Okay. But they aren't hiding out in the Mediterranean like you'd expect.
No, they've been sequestered in the north to protect the divine origins of the Finnish people. They call themselves the Shield of God, or sometimes the White Hart.
And get this, the most jarring detail you flagged in the notes is that the Ark of the Covenant itself, like the literal golden ark from the Old Testament, it's hidden deep within a Finnish fell called Pyhätunturi.
Yeah, which is just such a striking image.
It's guarded 24/7, and the password to access these holy subterranean temples is the word Ipmil.
Which is actually the Sami word for God. And the cosmology the author builds around this isolated northern fortress is incredibly intricate. This Shield of God faction comprises descendants of Eve and what the text identifies as White Riders.
White Riders. So historically in this universe, what was their role?
Well, they were tasked with hunting dragons.
Oh, wow. So we are going full fantasy here.
You'd think so, right? But the narrative takes a really fascinating metaphorical turn. It explicitly frames these dragons not as giant scaly beasts, but as the embodiment of evil forces and a quote, conspiracy of evolution.
Wait, evolution, like the biological process.
No, in this mythos, evolution is portrayed as a dark, deliberate, secret society established to defy the creator.
Okay, which sets up their ancient adversaries perfectly.
Yeah.
You have this hidden northern haven, acting almost like an eschatological witness protection program.
That is a great way to put it, yeah.
It's as if someone took the world's most sacred, hunted relic and just stashed it in a cosmic deep freeze where no one would ever think to look.
Oh.
And they're hiding from the forces of darkness, right? The Black Angels.
Yeah, and their origins are rooted in pure Gothic horror. The Black Angels operate out of a temple of the abyss situated beneath the Vatican.
Underneath the Vatican. Wow.
Yep. According to the text, this temple reaches all the way down into the womb of hell, into Tartarus. And they are guided by demonic guardians named Jezebel and Apollon.
But they aren't just an ancient underground cult, right? Because they have a massive eastern stronghold, too.
Exactly, in the city of Vodolsk, which is what drives the modern conflict of the story.
And that modern conflict is actually where I want to push back on the premise for a second.
Yeah.
Because looking at this, you have bloodlines tracing back to Eden, ancient arcs, underground demonic temples, all very ancient.
Right, very biblical.
Yeah. So if these factions are millennia old, how does a holy war actually function in the 21st century? Are we talking about swords and shields? Because when we get to the protagonist, a man named Toivo, the battlefield completely changes.
It doesn't just change, it internalizes. The author realizes you can't fight a modern spiritual war with ancient bronze weapons. The conflict evolves into a highly sophisticated technological battle for human consciousness.
So the demonic possession of the ancient world is what replaced by cybernetics.
Exactly. Replaced by cybernetic implants.
Which brings us to the 66.6 network. This is where the story feels like Dante's Inferno, rewritten by William Gibson. The text introduces this microchip technology, supposedly invented by a possessed member of a French secret society.
It's terrifying stuff.
It really is. So Toivo is kidnapped, drugged, and dragged to that eastern stronghold of Vadulsk. And while he's in this hazy, waking dream state, a mechanical drill is driven into his skull, and a hard microchip is injected right into his diencephalon.
And we need to pause on that specific anatomical detail because it explains the mechanism of his torture. The diencephalon isn't just a random part of the brain.
Right, it does something specific.
Yeah, it acts as the primary relay center for sensory information. It handles intense autonomic functions and regulates emotional responses. By placing the chip there, the narrative is telling us that the villains have completely hijacked Toivo's biological control room.
It makes perfect sense. The text notes this project is funded by oligarchs and the Illuminati to usher in a global cashless society following, like, a manufactured economic collapse.
Right, the classic geopolitical conspiracy angle.
Yeah, but the immediate terrifying reality for Toivo is that this chip turns his inner mind into a 24/7 reality TV show. He is hooked up to a supercomputer codenamed the Beast.
And psychiatrists are actually monitoring his emotional spikes in real time.
Exactly. While the Black Angels use the chip's neural link to feed dark, tormenting voices and intrusive thoughts directly into his consciousness, it is the ultimate violation of privacy.
It really represents the complete weaponization of anxiety. But the White Hearts, the shield of God, they're not defenseless against this. They possess their own radical forms of technology.
Which honestly leads to one of the most cinematic, baffling sequences in this whole deep dive.
Yeah.
Toivo and a woman named Elisa are ambushed in a riverside park.
Yeah, by these microchipped men in black tuxedos driving a black van.
Right. So they aim a Glock at Elisa. Toivo dives in front of her, takes a bullet to the chest, but he survives because the bullet strikes a wedding ring he happened to be carrying.
A literal lifesaver. But while he's knocked unconscious from the impact, the kidnappers grab Elisa.
Right, but Toivo's vitals dropping triggers a failsafe in his wristwatch, doesn't it?
It does, and this is where the tech gets totally wild. The watch activates the 12 disciples, which is a network of 12 orbital satellites.
Orbital laser satellites.
Yes. Back at a White Heart temple called Stephanos, an elder named Larf is tracking the kidnappers on a monitor. He literally hits a button labeled error, and these satellites beam a concentrated signal straight down from orbit that melts the microchips inside the kidnappers' brains.
The sensory details there are just gruesome. Black substance pours from their ears right before the chips combust. It allows Elisa to escape into the woods, though she realizes she took a bullet to the side during the struggle.
And her rescue pushes the genre boundaries even further. Another White Heart elder, Randolph, arrives but not in a stealth helicopter.
No, of course not.
He arrives in a flying white chariot pulled by a white horse. They rush the dying Elisa to a hospital where they employ instant cryopreservation. She's placed in a capsule, Randolph prays over it, and it instantly fills with water, deep freezing her to keep her alive until advanced laser surgery can be performed.
And the kicker is that later, Toivo's weeping tears of sorrow are what miraculously melt the ice away.
It's incredibly poetic.
Okay, but I have to stop and untangle this. We have orbital laser satellites and brain-melting frequencies operating in the exact same scene as flying white chariots and magical ice-melting tears. How does the text reconcile this hardcore sci-fi with pure magical realism? I mean, you can't out-hack the devil, can you?
Well, that tension is the whole point of Toivo's journey. The narrative is forcing the realization that physical technology, the satellites, the guns, the cryotubes, they're ultimately just external, clumsy manifestations of spiritual power.
So we can't rely on them.
Exactly. To genuinely defeat the torment of the microchip in his head, Toivo cannot rely on a satellite strike. He has to turn inward. He has to endure a grueling, literalized journey through the architecture of his own mind, which the text visualizes in this incredibly striking way.
You're talking about Train 777.
Yes.
When you highlighted this section, it blew me away. Because psychological therapy is usually portrayed as sitting on a couch, talking through past events. This text turns cognitive behavioral therapy into a physical near-death cryogenic nightmare.
It really does. It's like a high-speed cyberpunk version of Dante's Purgatory. Toivo slips into a mental fortress, arriving at this misty industrial railway station. And he boards a massive train, like 350 meters long, with the carriage shaped like a golden shield.
And inside, the sheer scale of his psychological burden is quantified. There are exactly 400 cryocapsules spread across 3 floors.
And with this agonizing pain radiating from the chip in his head, he realizes that each of those 400 capsules represents a distinct, unprocessed trauma from his past that he has to face.
400, that's a massive number.
Well, the number 400 is highly intentional. It scales up the biblical motif of 40, like the 40 days Jesus spent tempted in the wilderness, or the Israelites wandering the desert. It signifies a period of profound trial and purification. Toivo has to physically inhabit and process 400 separate trials to cleanse his mind.
It functions like aggressive high-speed exposure therapy. Let's look at how the symbolism works in the specific capsules the text focuses on, because the imagery is dense. He starts with capsule 40, right?
Yes, labeled trauma of codependency.
Right. So he has to strip down, step into the capsule, and endure a freezing agent. He wakes up in a bright, pearl-like room holding a black, pulsating heart that looks like a lung destroyed by chain smoking. And he feels his own heart being pierced by crimson nails.
The crimson nails are a brilliant choice by the author. They evoke the crucifixion, of course, but in the context of codependency, they represent the agony of being pinned down, immobilized by the needs and demands of others. Toivo is feeling all the pain of lovelessness he's absorbed over his life.
And he doesn't fight it with a weapon, does he?
No, he overcomes it through veritas truth and the unconditional love of his mother's message. A massive white hand touches the ruined heart, purifying it into blinding white light. He wakes up in the physical capsule, now floating in a red liquid that simply vanishes when he touches it, leaving him totally unharmed.
It's like a complete rewriting of his neural pathways. He immediately moves to capsule 8 on the second floor, labeled Eternity. This represents the pain of loss and grief.
And the imagery here is so bleak.
Yeah, the capsule fills with a suffocating black liquid. In his comatose state, he breathes this black fluid and sees his deceased loved ones lying in white coffins with golden swords on their chests. Then death itself incarnates a massive, pulsating creature in black robes with a bleeding skull.
And the resolution here shifts from gentle purification to violent triumph. A colossal foot, glowing with bronze light, steps down and just crushes the manifestation of death into millions of black splinters.
Wow.
Yeah, Toivo falls out of the capsule, vomiting up the black fluid while a voice declares, "Death is victory."
It's relentless. He then drags himself up to the third floor to a capsule shaped like a black coffin emitting a red glow. This is capsule 6, which he modifies with a key to become capsule 7, representing the trauma of abuse.
This specific trial maps directly onto the agony in Gethsemane.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, for anyone rusty on the theology, that's the garden where Christ foresaw his crucifixion with such intense, overwhelming anguish that he sweated drops of blood. The author is taking Toivo's trauma and elevating it to that archetypal level of suffering. He falls through a dark sky into a living, bubbling black pond populated by laughing, grotesque faces and massive knives shaped like skulls.
The mechanics of how he escapes this pond are so poignant to me. He doesn't fight the grotesque faces. He hears his mother's voice urging him to forgive them. As tears mixed with blood stream down his face, he simply whispers, "I forgive."
That's the turning point.
Yeah, the moment he surrenders that anger, the horrifying black pond transforms into a sparkling, multicolored spring of peace. It's like forgiveness is the antivirus to the microchip's programming.
That's exactly it. By processing these deep-seated wounds, he starves the chip of its power source. The dark voices thrive on unhealed trauma. When he wakes up from the final capsule, the mental landscape has completely shifted. He is riding in a transparent train car, soaring over snow-capped green mountains toward a breathtaking, pristine haven called Stephanos.
Dolphins are jumping in the fjord, the sky is clear. I mean, you'd think he has finally won.
You would think so, yeah.
But looking at the broader narrative structure, achieving inner peace doesn't end the war. It actually makes him the ultimate target.
Precisely. Once the internal architecture is secured, the external forces of darkness launch their most desperate, chaotic assault yet. Just as Toivo steps off the train into paradise, the sky over Stephanos is totally blotted out.
And the enemies they send are pure, unadulterated nightmare fuel. Black helicopters and parachutes fill the sky. Bombers start dropping napalm, and then a cybernetic bear lands right in front of him.
A cybernetic bear?
Yeah. The top half is a snarling beast, but the bottom half consists of robotic, sharpened steel spider legs. It actually decapitates Toivo in a horrific vision, which he only snaps out of because his guardian angel, Gabriel described here, as a 3.5-meter-tall warrior intervenes.
It's a deliberate collision of the primal and the mechanical. The demonic forces are perverting nature with cybernetics.
It's so chaotic. Toivo manages to escape the burning city in a white Humvee driven by a man named John. And I love this detail from the notes. The Humvee has a steering wheel made entirely of deer antlers.
Naturally.
Naturally, they're blasting spherical lightning out of the dashboard to destroy the spider bears, but as they attempt to blast open a secret tunnel in a mountain to escape, a black angel emerges from the tree line riding a black velociraptor.
Remember the earlier cosmology we discussed?
Right, the dragons.
Exactly. If the White Riders hunted dragons, and dragons represent the conspiracy of evolution, then a demon riding a dinosaur is the ultimate symbol of that ancient lie being weaponized against the truth.
The layers here are wild. So the raptor rider swings a bowl of heavy black weights on strings and absolutely obliterates John. Toivo's hand is mangled by automatic fire. In desperation, he reaches into a compartment in the Humvee, pulls out a fist-sized pearl explicitly labeled Truth, and hurls it at the Black Angel.
And this pearl generates a localized black hole.
Yes. It sucks the demon inside, echoing with the screams of the damned. He crashes the Humvee into the tunnel, but the trauma of the battle forces one last shift in reality. He blacks out.
Which brings him to the penultimate trial, a sequence that strips away all the heavy artillery and leaves him with pure psychological dread. He wakes up on a ghost ship called the Blue Pearl.
This part is deeply unsettling. He's wandering a massive, luxurious white and blue ocean liner, but it's completely deserted. The sea outside is pitch black and choked with bloody skulls floating like coral reefs.
It plays out like a surreal murder mystery or an escape room. He has to navigate these color-coded drawers in his cabin, piecing things together. He finally reaches the control room and finds the ship's captain sitting there.
But the captain's neck is twisted 150 degrees backward. Just a terrifying, grotesque image.
And it leads him up to the ship's massive observation tower. He's looking out at the stars, and this is where the dark, microchip-induced voices make their final play.
The devil actually whispers directly into his ear, right?
Yes. Urging him to jump off the tower. The voice even twists scripture, mocking him by saying, "Angels will bear you up." It is the ultimate temptation of despair. The suggestion that after all this fighting, oblivion is the only way out.
But Toivo refuses to test his creator. He rejects the despair, and the trial instantly dissolves. He washes ashore on a vibrant tropical island, bringing us to the climax of the epic. Rising above the forest is an immense, glowing castle with 7 towers, named Agape.
Agape, the Greek word for unconditional divine love.
He reads one last letter from his mother, instructing him to step into the waterfall of God's glory. He dives into the central pond at the castle, and a sparkling golden stream of living water cascades down from the sky.
Contrast that sensory detail with the grim surgery in Vidalsk from the beginning.
Oh, absolutely. Instead of a cold mechanical drill breaching his skull in a hazy drug state, it is a golden waterfall of pure clarity. The water visibly washes over him, and he feels the microchip melt and dissolve from his diencephalon. The millions of screaming, intrusive voices are silenced instantly.
He experiences complete eternal freedom.
Yeah. The narrative concludes with him ascending into the sky in a bright white swan-shaped airplane, sitting alongside his family as his mother tells him they are finally arriving at the Golden City.
Synthesizing this entire journey, it is remarkable how the author merges these two massive themes. The healing of deeply personal, hidden psychological trauma is inextricably linked to victory in a cosmic holy war.
You simply cannot defeat the Black Angels dropping napalm outside until you have painstakingly unlocked and processed the capsules of trauma inside.
Exactly.
Stepping back to look at the entire landscape we explored today, it's impossible not to marvel at the sheer creativity of the Shield of God. It takes the most extreme tropes imaginable: velociraptor-riding demons, satellite laser strikes, cryotubes on golden trains, and uses them to articulate highly grounded, universal human struggles.
It really is a sprawling metaphor for mental health, the burden of our pasts, and the desperate, bloody search for veritas.
It really is.
And that is exactly why this text, despite its wild sci-fi trappings and ancient mythologies, feels so urgent for us right now. We live in an era characterized by hypervigilance. Algorithms track our behavior, screens dictate our emotional responses, and our attention is constantly being harvested.
It's exhausting.
Right. So Toyota's nightmare of having a reality TV microchip in his head where unseen forces are monitoring his reactions and feeding him negativity, it's an incredibly potent allegory for modern digital life.
It really is. The technology we use every day blurs the lines between our private thoughts and our public data.
And Toivo's journey reminds us that true freedom from that constant, invasive noise requires intentional, often painful work. You have to face the cold.
Which leaves a fascinating, lingering question for you listening to ponder. pulling right from the notes you shared with us. If we are already living in a mild, algorithmic version of Toivo's microchipped reality, constantly fed anxiety by unseen networks, what does your own personal Train 777 look like?
That's a great question. What are the specific capsules you need to step into, and what dark waters do you need to transform to finally break free? The blueprints for the Golden City are there, but the journey through the freezing truth is mandatory.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We always appreciate taking the time to extract the hidden architecture of these challenging narratives with you. Until next time.